Hey, everybody. Okay, we're just going to wait a little bit to let some people come on. We're going to give a few minutes. We have Mr. Nick Liebert coming in, and Donna Crane is in the house, and Nick Liebert's coming in.
Hello, Mr. Library.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for doing this. We're excited.
Yes, trying to stay on top of everything.
Why is Donna Crane not in? Oh, sorry, guys. Okay, Donna is in the room now. Look at this exit family coming on in here with Edna coming on in. So, Nick, I don't know if you want to say a little teeny exit is so wonderful or something. Um, and I know we have a 7 o'clock event that other people could jump on if they want to. I'm also letting people come into the room. And then we're going to introduce the attorney Chuck.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I'd just like to say a few words. Thank you guys again, Lana and Victoria, for hosting this today. Exit Strategy Realty is really dedicated to making sure that real estate agents have the most education in front of them. We are doing a lot in the industry right now to try to get people educated onto all the different changes going on in our industry. We have another big thing tomorrow going on at noon. That if everybody wants to join us, all you need to do is text grow with exit strategy, all one word, grow with exit strategy to the number 85377. Again, that's grow with exit strategy to the number 85377. And what you're going to do is tomorrow at noon Central, we're talking about ZenList, the power of the ZenList app to get you access to the private listing network for both you and your clients, and a lot of other features of this very key tool. But tonight, it's not about that. It is about learning these, navigating these, all these changes for landlords and tenants. So I really appreciate again you guys, ladies, being here and all you do for Exit Strategy Realty in the community. Thank you.
Did we want to put that in the chat maybe, Victoria? The grow with exit, correct, Nick?
Put it in there right now, ladies.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Um, so just to give you guys a little background, I mean, we have a lot more people that signed up, so I'm going to give a few more minutes, but probably 5:35 we will start. But I just wanted to say that we have met Chuck's through another person in the real estate world, and we realized that he does eviction stuff. I know we're always looking for people that help us. That attorneys don't all do that, and he does. So, sorry guys, I'm letting people in at the same time, so I'm thinking. Okay, so I just think it was great because it came at a time that he knows these rules and that we need to be abiding by or helping our landlords to abide by. I know we're already seeing some challenges, so I just wanted all of us to be able to be educated so we're not breaking the rules. We have some more exit family. Hey, Nicole.
Hi.
Um, so I don't know how many people are actually, if there's any property managers. If there are, you can go in the chat and let us know. Most of the people that signed up today are brokers. I'm just letting Attorney Chuck know. Um, And we, as I was saying before, we've all seen some things. So if you guys have questions to see, because I've already caught something in the MLS and we're going to talk about it that I saw people doing. And so this is really to help all of us stay out of trouble, I guess is what we say. But if you have questions, you can do it both ways. If you want to put them in the chat, we'll try to watch it for the end. And if you want to unmute yourself and you want to talk, that's fine too. But we'll try to save it for the end. Welcome, Aaron. Okay. Yeah, Donna, you can put any questions you have in the chat and we'll ask for you. Okay, so I guess for like 5 minutes, I'll keep letting people in because we had a bunch more sign up. So I'll let people come in as they come in, but I don't want to make your presentation short. So we will just give you the floor, Attorney Chuck, and you can do your thing.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So I'm sharing my screen. So if there are any questions that come in the chat, if you can just interrupt and ask them, that'd be great because I don't have that window open. But thank you all for having me. I do appreciate the ability to educate and hopefully keep people out of trouble. That's more my biggest thing is to keep you out of trouble because I don't hold bail money anymore. So we got to do preventative maintenance here. As you mentioned, my name is Chuk Sonezia. I am a real estate attorney. I do quite a bit and not enough. It seems like there's never enough time in the day. But we're here to navigate Illinois' real estate laws and changes, and I look forward to hopefully educating and getting us to that promised land so we have a good understanding. So a little bit about, the firm. I am the managing attorney for the OD firm, which is a real estate law firm based right here in the South Side of Chicago. We focus on evictions, closing, and everything in between. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'll have more information.
Protect your home, family, system, or appliance breaks. Save time.
Oh, we had a commercial come in. That's awesome. So no problem. I got to get my cut of that marketing money. But so no problem. So the OD firm is a Chicago-based law firm which specializes in real estate matters, including rental agreements, eviction proceedings, property closings, and everything in between. All right, that's me. Well, that was me. So I'm not embarrassed. So like I mentioned before, my name is Attorney Chuk Sonezia. I'm a managing attorney at the OD firm. I specialize in real estate law. With over 2 decades of experience in Chicago real estate, I have a precise, detail-oriented approach to real estate matters. Not only am I an attorney, but I also hold a MBA in corporate finance and an engineering degree. As you can see, I've been trying to fix people's problems at an early age. This is me taking off my suit, getting my hands dirty, and trying to get the job done here. Trying to load a camera back when you had to load film in it. So still fixing problems since 1977. All right. So enough about me. That's the firm. If you want the information, you want to contact me, and I'll put this back on the screen later on, and we can go straight to the presentation. So muted myself. All right, sorry about that. Number one change is the ban on mandatory e-payments. So let's go to, what does the law say? The law says a landlord shall not require a tenant or prospective tenant in a residential lease by payment of means in electrical fund transfer. So electronic fund transfer, what does that mean? It's transfer of funds other than transactions originated by check, draw, or similar paper instruments. So what it means is, it doesn't mean you cannot well, it does not mean you cannot accept electronic means of payment. It means you cannot require it. It cannot be your only one. You must accept some form of draft, check, money order for the tenants to pay their landlord. That includes, that includes Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, which I don't advise using anyway. That includes proprietary third-party software that has maybe a tenant cafe or a tenant portal that allows you to pay. You cannot require that, even if there's no fee. And I think there's misinterpretation of the law. They say, oh, well, it's free, there's no charge, you can require it. You just can't. There are tons of people who are not only unbanked, but maybe not as digitally savvy, and that's what the statute actually says. So what does that mean? Explain to the landlord that they can no longer require it. They have to have an option. They have to have a non-electronic option. Violations are considered unlawful under the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Practice Act. So that's one of the changes. It brings it into a different court. And what that does is opens up the landlord to more potential damages in a suit like that. So stay clear. Any questions about that? If not, I'll move on. It seems pretty simple. All right, another change. Flood and radon disclosures for tenants. So in the past, as I'm talking to a room of brokers, so you're familiar with the radon disclosures when it comes to the sale of property. This includes it, and it makes it mandatory in rentals also. It requires the landlord to provide the disclosure and a guide to residential renters. It also opens up the door for tenants to conduct their own testing. So here's how it works. A landlord must disclose and provide the pamphlets with their lease or around that time with the lease. A tenant can conduct their own testing for radon. They have 90 days to conduct that. Now, when I say they have 90 days, they can do it longer than 90 days, but within that 90 days, if the test results exceed the recommended levels, the tenant may terminate the lease. If after 90 days they conduct their testing, then they don't have that demand. They don't have that option to terminate. But it does not require the landlord to do the testing, but it allows the tenant to do the testing. And if they do it within 90 days of the lease and it's too high, they're allowed to terminate the lease. Now, as we know, Cook County, Chicago, Illinois is not necessarily, I think the rumor is it's not a landlord-friendly state. Some of these laws, some of these new changes, I will say, are not the best for a landlord. The leverage is definitely shifting away from landlords and homeowners here. So don't blame the messenger here. I'm just reporting. So the next disclosure. This is an interesting new one. It's a flood disclosure, and they're actually two different disclosures. Now, the difference with this disclosure and other disclosures are not only does it have to be in writing, but these disclosures have to be given to the tenant before leasing. So if you're giving these disclosures while they're signing the lease, you're too late. It needs to be given before leasing. So maybe when they first visit the property or when you approve their application, sometime before signing the lease, they need to be given this disclosure. And there are two different disclosures. One, the first disclosure is the landlord must disclose if the property is located in a flood hazard area. That's the first disclosure that needs to be given. Secondarily, there's another disclosure, and it's particularly for properties in lower levels. A landlord must disclose if the lower level has flooded in the past 10 years, and if so, how often it's flooded. So that's more for lower level basement apartments, first floor apartments, or houses. So that's something, again, it has to be in writing, and it has to be given not only before and during the lease. So I think a lot of the Chicago standard leases have this in the lease, but pull the disclosure and give it to the potential tenant as soon as you possibly can. As soon as you define that they are qualified and they may have a chance, just send them an email and give the disclosure. It keeps you out of a lot of trouble. All right, so moving on to the next big thing, return of security deposits. So if you're familiar with Chicago rentals, then you're familiar with this rule. Illinois amendment now makes it a statewide law. So there are not too many changes with the understanding of it. It's just required statewide. Here's how it works. The Chicago Residential Landlord-Tenant Ordinance already has similar requirements for the return of security deposit. But what the state law does is it eliminates the carve-out. So the Chicago Residential Landlord-Tenant Ordinance had a carve-out where if you are a owner and you live in the unit and the unit is less than 5, the property is less than 5 units, then there's certain exemptions to the Chicago Residential Landlord or Tenant Ordinance that you didn't have to follow. No longer, mom and pops no longer have that protection. So everybody must follow it. And here's how it works. Security deposits, if you're going to collect a security deposit, and this is just about the return of it. There's other rules about how to collect it and how to maintain that. But if you're going to collect a security deposit at the termination or at the end of the lease, you must create an itemized list with the cost and the repairs and receipts before you can deduct the rent. That itemized list, the timing of the itemized list, must be given to the former tenant no later than 30 days from the ended tenancy. And when I say ended tenancy, there are certain criteria where if the lease ends and they leave, then it's clear. If their lease ends on the 31st, that's when the clock starts. Sometimes you have holdover situations where the lease ended, but they're still there. So in those particular situations, the 30-day clock starts when they've vacated and given up possession. Obviously, if you're doing an eviction, that 30-day starts when the sheriff puts them out. Sometimes you don't know, you think they may still be in the property. And in those particular situations, if they still have access to it, have been given to you, the 30-day clock starts once you've been given or notified that you have possession of your property. But you have to let them know in writing 30 days that you're going to deduct. Now, if you're going to return everything, then that's fine. But if you do not provide it in writing within 30 days, you will not legally be permitted to deduct from the rent. Along with that, you must return the rent or the remainder, the security deposit or the remainder of it no later than 45 days after they leave or after you get tenancy. So let's say you're keeping some of their deposit. The remainder has to be given to them within 45 days of them leaving the property. So you have 30 days to notify them and then 45 days to return it. Now, if you're keeping everything, then it should detail that on the notice that you give within 30 days. The cost should exceed the amount that's being deposited, and you'll have nothing to return. But just make sure you cover that. All right, moving on. So we are in Chicago. I think last week it was 80 degrees. Then it hailed and snowed, and I guess Friday it's supposed to be 75. So we all know this. So heating and cooling is a necessity. So there's been one change. I don't think it's going to affect most of the brokers here, but I'll talk about it particularly. So in Chicago, I think under Lightfoot's mayoral term, there was an issue where we had seniors that were without air conditioning in high-rise buildings, and I think we had some fatalities. And so in response to that tragedy, they added this heating and cooling standard to the ordinance. And what it says is, in senior homes, in buildings that provide housing for seniors, you need to have, if you don't have air conditioning, if you don't have central air in each unit, you need to have a cooling center on site. So pretty simple. If you don't have air conditioning in the unit and you get acclimate weather where it's heat over an index of 80 degrees, you must have a cooling center that's open to the residents. And that's a big change, but for most landlords, it doesn't really affect them so much. So we can go into the regular Chicago heating ordinance, which hasn't changed at all. It requires landlords to supply heat to apartments where they don't have individual controls. And if they do have individual controls, they're required to keep the heating equipment in good operating condition. So you must have heat when it's hot. You must have heat when it's cold. There's no mandate on air outside of the senior home situation yet. So when is the heating season? The heating season is September 15th to June 1st. Doesn't matter if we get to 80, you still have to maintain that heat. from September 15th to June 1st. The temperatures that need to be maintained, daytime, 68 degrees. So 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. If you are providing heat, if it's heat's included, if the landlord's providing the heat, the system must function where the minimum of 68 degrees is held during the day. And that goes down a whopping 2 degrees at night to 66 degrees at night. You must maintain that. Now, I know our thermostat, me and the wife, we keep ours at 74, but those are the minimums. The penalties, landlords and building owners face a fine of $500 to $1,000 per day per violation. This will add up quick. If a tenant calls the 311 or the buildings department and they come in with their heat gun, they can charge you per day, and they will. Now, obviously, you get a good attorney, go to your administrative hearings, and you can maybe knock some of that off. But it is legitimate. They can charge you per day. All right. Am I moving too fast? Okay. So let's move on then. Property tax code changes. All right. So two main changes. Well, there are a few changes, but two main changes. As brokers, do you all deal with tax sales? Too much? Yes, no, so. Okay. So two main changes. One of the biggest changes. So as an attorney, I deal with tax sales all the time. I'm dealing with properties that the owner did not realize. And it usually happens when the house is, the mortgage has been satisfied already and nobody's paying the taxes after escrow is stopped. So you have sometimes a widow who may still have the property. She owns it free and clear, but since there's no mortgage, nobody's collecting the taxes and nobody's paying. So what happens is the taxes get sold. And then usually it's an out of town or out of state company that purchases the taxes, and it takes about 2.5, 3 years to perfect it. What this does is they can bid for the taxes just for what's owed with no interest rate. So it's a zero bid. But what the play actually is they want to buy your delinquent taxes. And then every year, every tax bill after that, they want the statutory interest. And so prior to this code, the statutory interest was 18%. So if you wonder how somebody wins a zero interest bid, they pay all subsequent taxes and they get 8% on top of that, guaranteed statutorily. That has now changed. It's been cut in half from 18% to 9%. So what effect that has on your sellers, if they do have their taxes purchased, it will greatly reduce the redemption cost because you won't have that 18% accumulation and make it that much costly to redeem the property so they can sell it or move it or keep it. Scavenger sales. So this was a last year term. No, they're no longer required. So in the past, you have an annual tax sale, and then every 2 years you had a scavenger sale. So the state legislature has now got rid of that requirement. So there's no longer a mandatory scavenger sale. And what the treasurer has announced that she will do is she will only request a scavenger sale if it's requested by the elected board of review. So I don't see elected officials asking for that anytime soon. So that's one thing. And the aim is to address the concern with tax buyers acquiring properties at low cost and not utilizing them effectively. I think it's been in the news about a landlord that had over 800 units or 800 vacant properties and just sat on them. So what's happening in Cook County, we have a lot of coastal money, a lot of East Coast, West Coast money that's coming in, and they can't believe you can buy a home in Chicago for $200 or so forth. So they're playing in the tax sale game, and they're really some want to acquire them and sell them on the open market, but most just want the interest because at 18%, there's nowhere else you can park your money and get that kind of return. So that's part of the reduction there. The other tax benefit, and it's still being worked out, is Illinois has enacted a Illinois Home Buyers Savings Account Act, which allows residents to create savings accounts to dedicate towards purchasing a home and down payment assistance. Not too sure how this is going to work because we're still looking for some cooperation from banks. But as far as the tax benefits, homeowners or potential homeowners will be allowed to save money in that savings account and write off the money that they put in there up to $10,000 for couples, $5,000 each. So it's, instead of the down payment assistance for free that we were looking at in the past, this is more of an opportunity to save that money tax-free. All right, moving right along. All right, we're talking to brokers. So you wondering how it affects you personally. So there are a few things here. All right, so as we know, the written agreement, they've changed the way brokers conduct business. So a written agreement is now required when working with the client and before property tours. So that is something that's there. What?
Okay.
Yeah, you must have it in writing. You must let your client know before you take them out. Oh, that okay is not for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my mom, they kind of.
All right. So the one misnomer here is that written agreement does also apply to rentals. So if you're a broker and you are in conducting business where you get commissions for rentals, you must also have that written agreement reflect that additionally. Two, brokers must disclose all commissions and payments to clients. And that goes with the written agreement part. And then, which you probably wouldn't notice yet, but continuing education, mandatory fair housing, continuing education will be added to brokers' licensing requirements. It will not increase the number of courses, that number of hours you have to take, but it will move some things around. So you will, so that will be added to the mix. And we'll talk more about these mandatory fair housing issues later on.
We do
All
have
right.
a question that I think applies to that section, and it may be Nick who may have more of the answer to this. But to ask, should we be submitting a form to the landlord's agent with our requested commission? Is there a form for that?
Okay, so I'm happy to chime in here. You would be, as a tenant's representative, think of it this way. Every time you show a property, before you show it, what are you supposed to be doing? Contacting the listing agent or the management company or whoever the broker is on that selling or landlord side and asking what? The following question. What is your client offering as cooperative compensation? Not is your client. What is your client offering as cooperative compensation? That is the script for those of you guys that are at other offices. That is what I'm recommending to agents to ask. What is your client offering as cooperative compensation? So you're going to have that, but then you're obviously also going to be, when you are submitting your lease, etc., there should be a requested commission. So if they're, depending on what board you're in, so Natasha, you've asked, you're in Chicago Association of Realtors, there is a form for that. It's also, I believe, in your dot loop. For those of you guys that are at our office, I pay for that as part of Project X. You have all those uploaded documents. If you don't find a form, at least at my office, there's also a standard universal commission statement, which has been on, or universal commission document, which has been on dot loop since August 17th. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for the assist. Right. One of my most hated subjects right here, condominiums. So there's been a few changes also with, well, let me just put it this way. As an attorney, when I deal with condo purchases or sales, there are certain requirements and documents that need to be delivered from the condo association. Usually when a condo association is professionally managed and run, there's a system, there's an online way to request these documents that attorneys usually can go into peacefully and calmly and get these documents quickly. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but there are situations where you have condos that are not professionally managed and you have maybe a 6-unit condo that is run literally by the people that live there that may not have as much financial acumen or as much desire to move things as quickly as they should. And it tends to move deals in a slow way. So there are two things that I'll note here. Condominiums can no longer refuse and it's usually when you have a right of first refusal. They can no longer refuse based on FHA financing or any other discriminatory reasons. So in the past, you've had condos that would say, we don't really want to sell to this person or that person, and you can no longer discriminate as a condominium or condominium board. What that does not mean that all condos will qualify for lending. It just means that the condo association can't discriminate based on financing type. The other issue here is it reduces the amount of time. So with these disclosure documents I mentioned earlier, in the past, they had 30 days to provide them, but we all know 30 days is just too long to sit on a deal. So they've reduced that to 10 days. Now, we'll see how that works in practice, but those are some changes that can really help. So if you ever wonder why the attorney's taking so long to move certain things, we haven't got these documents, these disclosures, this information from the condo board yet, and we're still going through that. And they charge heavily for it too. So it's one of those things that one of those few things that can help home purchasers.
Can I ask a question? Is that for co-ops as well as condos?
I don't believe so. I didn't see co-ops in the terminology, but
Okay.
that'll be something I'll look into. Co-ops work a little bit differently, so they don't have the same disclosure requirements in this co-op, and each co-op is run differently. It's more like a contract. It's more like it's a different type of vehicle. So I would probably say no, it doesn't include co-ops, but let me do a little more digging on that before I give you a definitive answer on that. All right, so now we're getting to the bread and butter. Landlord Retaliation Act. So it's kind of a quasi whistleblower protection act here. And so let's see what the law says. So it says, and let me get into it. A landlord is prohibited from, here we go. A landlord may not knowingly terminate a tenancy, increase rent, decrease services, bring or threaten to bring a lawsuit against a tenant for possession, or refuse to renew a lease or tenancy because the tenant has in good faith done any of the following. What is any of the following? They complained about a code violation. They complained about a building or housing or health violation. They sought the assistance of a community organization. They've requested the landlord to make repairs. They've organized to become members of the tenant union, or they testified in court or administrative proceedings of the condition of the property. You cannot, you should not, hopefully you all will not ever retaliate based on any of these things. Now, here's the trick. Here's the problem with, well, not problem, but here's one of the nuances of this law. There is, I'll go back to here. There is a presumption of retaliation if an eviction occurs within 1 year of the tenants exercising their right. So what that means is it switches the burden. The tenant can claim you did it, and the presumption is you did it. It is up to you to prove that you didn't. The landlord must prove non-retaliatory intent for eviction. So there is a rebuttable presumption. If they say you did it, the court says you did it, unless you prove you didn't. You have to rebut it. And so usually this is the term right here, no fault, no cause evictions. I don't know how you all heard of no just cause and no cause evictions. So usually the problem is in these no fault, these no cause evictions. Now, non-retaliatory actions. If the landlord can prove a legitimate non-retaliatory basis for the action, or the landlord began the action before the tenant engaged in the protected activity. So if you've already given them a notice saying you're not renewing, and then they called 311 and said the roof is leaking, you have to prove that, but that would work. Yeah, so just cause is a non-retaliatory action. So let me skip something. Let me do a quick no fault and just cause. All right. All right. Just cause evictions refers to a situation where landlords can only evict a tenant for specific reasons specified by law. Common just cause reasons are non-payment of rent, lease violations, illegal activity, property damage, nuisance, or disturbance of neighbors, breach of lease terms. Most of them are breach of lease terms or non-payment of rent. Just cause evictions provide tenants with certain protections and ensure that landlords have legitimate reasons for seeking the eviction. Usually, in Chicago, well, not usually, in Chicago, just cause evictions are typically curable. What that means is a tenant can cure it, can fix the problem. If they are not paying the rent, you give them a 5-day notice, they can cure it by paying the full rent in 5 days. If you give them a 10-day notice because there's a lease violation, let's say they have somebody's living there that doesn't belong there, within 10 days, they can fix that problem and it goes away. In Cook County, in Southern Cook County, or in Cook County outside of Chicago, the 10-day notice for a lease violation, that's it. You give the 10-day notice, on the 10th day, you can start the eviction. Doesn't matter if they fixed it or not. So there's little nuances. So with a just cause eviction, this is typically identified by 1-day notices, 5-day notices, and 10-day notices. Forget about the 1-day notices because I don't want anybody asking me about a 1-day notice. It's rare. It's usually for squatter situations. And so you just give them a notice that they need to get out there, and you start the case. So that's a 1-day notice. There's no legitimate 1-day notice for somebody that has a lease. 5-day notice is for non-payment of rent. 10-day notice is for another lease violation. When you draft 10-day notices, be very specific on what the violation is. If you can be extremely specific by quoting a line in the actual lease with a paragraph number that says you're in violation of section this, that's key. I can't tell you how many times I've had to tell people that I cannot move forward with this eviction because they're 10-day notice because they were not quiet when they wanted them to be quiet. It's like, well, what's the violation? What does the lease actually say? You can't, it's a different situation. So those need to be really specific. And these are usually not considered discriminatory because there's a just cause for the eviction. Now, you have the no-fault evictions. These are the situations where landlords seek to regain possession for the property without requiring any specific fault on the part of the tenants. Common no-fault are end of lease or expiration of a fixed-term lease, owner desires to occupy the property, owner wants to move back in, removal of the property from the rental market. No-fault evictions typically require a landlord to provide adequate notice to tenants and follow specific legal procedures. During COVID, there was a change in the Chicago residential landlord tenant ordinance with no-fault evictions or non-renewals. And so prior to COVID, you wanted somebody out, you gave them a 30-day notice if their lease was expired or if they're month to month, and that was it. The world was pure, and that was it. Now, 30-day notices are rarely even applied anymore. 30-day notices only apply for month-to-month leases where the tenant has only been there for less than 6 months. If the tenant has been there for more than 6 months and less than 3 years, in Chicago, you must give a 60-day notice. Actually, in Cook County, you must give a 60-day notice. In Chicago and in Chicago only, if the tenant has been there for 3 years or more, you have to give a 120-day notice to initiate an eviction or for an eviction. Now, the suburbs does not have the 120-day notice requirement, but in Chicago, if they've been there for 3 years, you have to give this notice. That's a 4-month notice before you can even start the eviction process. Any questions on that? Should I move on?
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Absolutely.
There is a brand new form going back to the questions. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. There's a brand new form from the Chicago Association of Realtors as of February called the Landlord Payment of Tenant Brokerage Compensation Agreement. This is a brand new form as of February, the end of February. It should be, at least in our office, it's in dot loop. So I'm going to put that in the chat as well. that is it's across the board. It can be for commercial or residential leases, landlord payment of tenant brokerage compensation agreement. That's for Chicago Association of Realtors. If you're not a member of CAR, your local board, Moore, NASBAR, probably has a very similar form that came out in February. Thank you.
Also, is there a 90-day, if it's less than they've been there 3 years, is there a 90-day requirement for notice?
So I saw that, and people have been talking about that, and no, there is not.
Oh,
There's no 90-day notice. So I think there's some, in my practice, whenever we hear of 90-day notices, it's for foreclosures, and it's for the eviction of a if there's a foreclosure involving a bona fide tenant, then after the foreclosure is perfected, the attorneys have to give a 90-day notice to the bona fide tenant. But typically, no, not when it comes to certain situations. That's the situation where the landlord is the bank or somebody else who foreclosed on it, and they have to honor the existing lease that was there, or if there is even a lease. So, but no, typically there's no 90. It's a 30, 60, 120.
okay.
In Chicago. In Cook County, it's just it's 30 and 60. 30 for month to month, 60 for annual lease.
Can you repeat the time frame for the 60 days? So if it's 30 days, a 30-day notice will work if it's less than 6 months. And then what's the time frame for 60 days?
In Chicago, a 30-day notice will work if it's a month-to-month lease, and I want to stress, a month-to-month lease, and they've been there for less than 6 months. If you have just to give you a scenario, if you have a year lease and you just want them out after month 2, you cannot use this. Their lease is a year lease, so you have to go through that. But if you have a month-to-month lease and they haven't been there for 6 months, then yes, you can give a 30-day notice. In Chicago, a 60-day in Chicago and Cook County, a 60-day notice is if they've lived there for over 6 months and less than 3 years. I'm sorry, over 6 months to less than 3 years. So that's what the 60-day notice is. Anything over, if they've lived there for over 3 years, then in Chicago you have to give them a 120-day notice. In Cook County, you can still give a 60-day notice. And the whole purpose of this actually makes sense. You know, during COVID, you don't want somebody who's been living in a place for 20 years all of a sudden have to pack up in 30 days. And so that was the tear-jerking part that allowed this extension. Does that clarify?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
no problem. All right, but these are the ones that when I mentioned that presumption, that rebuttable presumption, when you deal with the no cause or the no fault, you have to prove that what your actions are not retaliatory. You have the difference is you have the burden as the landlord. You are responsible for proving your own case. All they have to do is make the allegation, and that's it. Here's what happens in practice, and I'll let you know. When somebody, and it's I hate to even say this, but you know, we have a lot of bleeding hearts, I know, as landlords. And what happens is they give a lot of warnings. They say, if you don't pay your rent, I'm going to have to evict you. And they wait. And month 2 happens and they wait. Month 3 happens and they wait. And they still try to force, blood out of the turnip. And then what happens is that very person that the landlord was given a whole bunch of chances calls 311 and say, hey, you know what? This landlord is messing up. Now, you gave them warnings, and unless you put it in writing, unless you sent these warnings in text, you now have the presumption, or I'm sorry, you are presumed to be a retaliatory eviction. Now, here's the issue. Here's where you shouldn't worry, and here's where you should worry. If you are going to evict for just cause, so if you're going to evict because they have not paid rent, that is fine. That is not a retaliation. That's probably the one, I'm not even going to say this right, but that's probably the one justified retaliation. If you don't pay, you have to go. But that makes it a just cause. Now, if you say, I don't like the way you're moving, you don't pay on time, you're caught up now, but you complain before, now I'm just not going to renew your lease, then you have a problem. And you have to rebut the presumption that your actions were retaliatory. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good because these cases are now mandatory 2 months worth of money and damages against the landlord. And it can really, tenants can add on top of their harm, what they had to go through. And it's difficult to find rentals right now. So you don't want to be on the other end of this. Any questions about that? All right, let me skip through that. You got to excuse my artwork. Try to make it dramatic. All right. So last but not least, source of income and the reusable tenant screening report. All right. So it's not, let me go into this. So it's not new. You can't discriminate based on income source, even though you want to. Even though you have a landlord that will tell you, the broker, I don't care what you do, I do not want any Section 8 tenants. Even though they may want that, you are the professional. You must educate them and tell them you cannot discriminate based on an income source. You cannot, you will not, your license is not worth it. I'm a landlord myself, and I don't know what the problem is. I love Section 8. I love housing choice vouchers. It works for me, but it does have its problems. And I can see this law being litigated because by accepting a voucher, you do have to accept the rules, and they are backlogged. And so if you have a tenant right now, which I had this morning, you're not moving them in right away. So there is a delay. There are a few different things you have to do. But I have a client that called me this morning, and she messed up, and she responded to somebody on Zillow. She put her property on Zillow, and she responded back, and it was very vague. What she said was, I'm not set up to take Section 8. What does that mean? I don't know. Does that mean she's discriminating, or was she not educated enough to know what that means to be set up to take it? But this is considered a human rights violation now. This law is in the Illinois Human Rights Act, and it's now prohibits this discrimination. So it is messy. You're not going down to the county. You're not going down to Daily Center anymore. You're going to Sedgwick now, or you have choices of where you file these violations, these human rights violations. And the more choices and places you have to file it, the worse it is on landlord. You lose just having to defend this. You lose just having to defend.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No
We've
problem.
had questions lately in a few different ways. When let me say it right, housing choice or DHA, whatever you want to call it, when they are applying for an apartment, and then the time that's just happened to us right now, the inspection gets delayed. The landlord could be taking another market rate, let's say, tenant, and get in and move in by the 1st. This person, we have to wait until the 3rd for the inspection. But we've already told them, I'm using this as a scenario, we've already told them that they can move in when they get through the process of Section 8. If someone comes in market rent in that time frame and they can move in on the 1st, is the landlord able to just go ahead and go with the market rate person without discriminating?
So you asked a loaded question, and there's certain things you said that I didn't agree with. You told that voucher holder that they have the place, they can move in and everything. So you kind of led them to believe they already have the place. Don't do that. So rephrasing the fact pattern, you're showing a place. You're not discriminating. You have voucher holders from CHA. You have market people. You have your criteria that's clean, that's articulable. And a voucher holder says, I want it. You say, no problem. We submit your voucher. You're waiting. There is no requirement for you to wait and take that off the market. So to answer your question, in that particular situation, whoever comes first. You didn't discriminate. You took it. They just took too long. So to answer your question, No, that typically that would not be discrimination.
So
You
you
can give
just can
them,
continue to show it even though you
I do it
have
all the
told
time.
them to submit their, okay.
Submit their paperwork. Because here's the issue. They can submit their paperwork. They can go through the process. But even if you go through this voucher process, you're not guaranteed that they're going to approve you. And you're not guaranteed they're going to approve you for the amount. So, and they're not actually not allowed to give you any money towards that rent in advance. You know, they might have a holding fee, and that's a whole different issue. You can, but no, you can still list it. Now, if you have a voucher holder and you like another voucher holder better than them, now you're in a predicament where you have to cancel their voucher and get another one. But if market comes quicker than a voucher holder, absolutely, you're not
So you're,
discriminating.
are you also saying they can't pay the, let's say, security deposit before to hold their spot?
They can hold their spot, but then you run into trouble when they want it refunded because they weren't approved, or
Right.
because your rent wasn't approved by CHA, or the house didn't pass. The trouble comes when the landlord wants to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Got
makes
it.
sense. So you cannot discriminate based on income source. You or the landlord, you are the landlord or the broker or whoever shows the property. As long as they provide lawful means, Social Security, Section 8. There is some potential litigation now on what is a reasonable means, because you have a voucher holder, which is government subsidies, but then you have these other non-for-profit subsidies, and the question is, do those count also? And I wouldn't discriminate regardless, but a lot of them don't give the proper identification or guarantee of money. So that's something that will be litigated. But most importantly, don't put it in writing. Don't do it, first off. But don't tell people on the text. So the client, the scenario I was telling you was somebody texts back, says, no, I'm not set up for Section 8. No, I don't take Section 8. I love Section 8. I love CHA. But people ask me all the time. I communicate, everything I do is via text with my properties. And they text me all the time. This house, does it accept Section 8? My answer is always the same. Of course we accept housing choice vouchers. Why wouldn't we? How many bedroom voucher do you have? That should be, hopefully we shouldn't discriminate anyway. So, but this is the breadth of take it. It's money, and it's actually sometimes, I know sometimes there's a stigma with voucher holders, and that's a false narrative. Just because somebody has a voucher holder doesn't mean you don't screen them. They're good people. They're good market tenants, and they're horrible people that destroy properties. And there's some people who, my portfolio are mainly houses, and I've had people that are like family. They've been with me for over 10 years, and when I walk around their house, they look at me and say, "This is my house." I'm like, I can tell, I can tell, and I'm okay with that. So, all right, last but not least, if we don't have any more questions on that, reusable rental applications. There's a few things that this means. There's a few things that are confusing with this, but what it says is no application fee if a tenant provides a reusable report. So some of the confusion is, if a tenant brings their credit report, then do I have to accept it? Yes, if under the second, if the report provides a legitimate from a legitimate credit reporting agency and it complies with the federal law, then yes, and it's 30 days or younger. But the bigger part of this is not so much you have to accept their credit report, but you cannot charge an application fee. That's the biggest thing. That's the part that people are skipping over. Not only are you providing they're providing the report, you cannot charge. If you have a fee for applications, you cannot charge it if somebody provides you this 30 days. You can still charge it if they don't have it, or if it's more than 30 days. But if they say, here, I want to rent this place and here's my report, you cannot charge them an application fee according to this change. All right, landlords cannot charge an application fee or a screening fee. It's like a get out of jail free card. if it's valid. Now, the report must be provided by a legitimate credit reporting agency and comply with the state and federal laws. The report must be accessible to the landlord at no cost. So it can't be, I have a report that was pulled and then a landlord has to go to a portal and pay to get it. But it must be delivered. Now I say this with a caveat here. Be careful. Be careful. There's a lot of fraud going out right nowadays. There's a lot of squatters, I ran across 3 people that advertise on their Facebook that they create check stubs, work histories and all that other stuff. So check to make sure it's valid. But the report must be accessible to the landlord at no cost and then typically used for screening tenants. Landlords can request additional confirmation, but that's going to be at the landlord's expense. Make sense? Any questions? 30 days.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am. Question
Okay.
1.
One says, if a tenant has applied to a property and another applicant wins, does the landlord's agent have to provide the application/credit report so the tenant can apply elsewhere?
Who paid for it?
The tenants typically pay for their own.
That would be a good practice.
Okay.
Does the law state that yet? No, but it's good to nobody but the tenant. So why would you keep it?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if there are certain reports that are requested, so if there's let's say their process is from the landlords to do a credit check and an eviction check, but they're only provided with a credit report, can they charge them for that eviction check?
All right, give me 1 second because they actually do speak on that. I'm going to pull it up. So I can't find it right now, but my understanding was if it does not include an eviction check, then that report's not complete. So that would not fall within a legitimate, it doesn't meet the state and federal standard. It would be incomplete. It has to have the eviction check. Now, the quality of the eviction checks are not always the best either. And so sometimes if it's a common name, if there's a misspelling, it usually comes up with no records found. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Was that the first question or the second question?
Oh, that covered both.
Both? Okay, got it.
I have
Any
another
questions, put them in
comment.
the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I was just saying if anyone else has questions, put them in the chat and I'll read them.
Oh, okay, yes. Also, I just was saying that we had one we found today when we were looking for a rental, and the agent actually typed in here, we will not, in caps, in the remarks to the public, we will not review or use other companies' background credit information for this property. So saying that just like that is probably considered wrong, but if they added something about, but they'll pay for it, is that then legit? Because it seems not legit.
But who will pay for it?
It would be the landlord, right?
Oh, is that okay? So what you're saying is, in a listing, a broker put on there that we will not accept credit reports from anybody but ourselves.
Yes.
Okay.
To me, I think that not legal what they wrote. If we're going off what you're saying, I think. Because they would have
they can say that, but right. There's no harm until they actually don't do it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So and these laws are relatively new, so I don't know how it's going to be enforced. But right now, I don't see a violation yet.
Unless they charge them for another report, then it would be violated, right?
So, okay, yes. So here's the issue with these laws. Now you get into the litigation. So they're so new that it's hard to find a history of litigation on those. So what was the law really trying to avoid? And I think the law was trying to avoid tenants paying exorbitant amounts of application fees because of this market. So if the law doesn't really support it if they say we're not taking your report. But if they pay for it themselves, then the question would be, well, where's the harm? And then the litigation has to be established to find out what the harm was. And I guess technically there could be a harm because maybe they're running your credit too many times or something like that. But the law right now doesn't really speak on that. That scenario, I don't think there's going to be a litigated issue. Now, if they say we're not going to take it and you're going to pay our application fee no matter what, and we don't care about the law, then yes, then that's a violation that is actionable. And anybody can sue for any reason. It's just a matter of, do you have a strong enough suit in this particular situation? Yeah, you have a strong enough suit. You were harmed. There was a explicit going against the laws of the land. And yeah, and you got to be careful as a landlord because there are tons of a lot of these rules don't give you, like I said, the presumption is that you did it. And so a lot of these rules, you have tons of attorneys that will represent clients because they see the money in the landlord. And if you don't pay it, I've had situations where the legal fees were more than the punishment. The punishment was more 2 months of rent, and the legal fees were almost 5 times that. And if you don't pay it, you're the landowner, you're the landlord. A lien can be put on the property also. So you have collateral that they can come for. Make sense? All right. So that being said, the moral of this is don't mess up. Don't mess up. That is what we're here for. So you don't mess up. We don't want them knocking on none of our doors.
That's exactly why we're here. And we thank all the brothers who are joining us because we're in this together, trying to figure out all of these new rules to make sure we are compliant, and just serving our clients in the best way and making sure we're protecting ourselves and our clients.
Yep. So a little bit about, as you mentioned before, I'm an eviction attorney. That's a whole mess in of itself, but this just complicates it a lot. So again, don't mess up. Don't mess up. All right. So at this point,
I do want to say too, we will be doing this again next week, but the focus will be on landlords. So we're going to be inviting our landlords and investors who we know need to hear this and it's presented, to their perspective. So I'll put the link for that in the chat if you do want to share that with your clients and your landlords. So that they can, I know sometimes it's a little difficult for us to get people to get on board with new information, especially for clients that we've been working with for a long time who've been doing this, and they kind of, may not understand that, no, we really do need to change with the times. So I'll put that link in the chat so that if you want to sign up and if you want to copy that link and send it to your investors as well and your landlords so that, you can join us next week.
Also, I just want to correct what I said. That I'm sorry, what did I say? Oh, we will send out this recording to the emails that were provided when you signed up. Additionally, we will send out the attorney's information as well, so that if you guys want, I know everyone's always asking for eviction people and it's hard to find. So we will make sure. Oh, he has his information. There you go. Look at him right on time.
This was so awesome. I know this is a lot of work to put together, and this I just added you on LinkedIn, sir. This was an amazing presentation. Really learned a lot. Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So if we have any questions, you can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Victoria just put the ones for the landlords. Any agents, we are not going to steal your clients. There is a part in there that says put the name of who referred, so we will know those are your clients.
Yeah, so if you do send it to them, just let them, you can reiterate that, just like, oh, put my name down, and then we'll definitely know that that's your client that you invited. Like I said, we just want us to all be able to work together and make this a little easier for everyone to get through. We've had quite a few changes in recent months, so we're just trying to stay on top of things.
Now, I have a funny story, right?
Please share.
All right. So in, what year was that? 2008. I was looking for properties. That's when properties were dirt cheap after the crash and so forth. And I don't know if you guys, well, you haven't, you met me virtually, but just to kill the surprise, I am a 6'5" Black man. And I could not get a broker to take me into a condemned property that's worth 10,000 for nothing. So in '08, I said, you know what? I'm an attorney. Let me go ahead and get my license just so I can get into these properties while I could. And it worked for that time. But after working, I don't even like to tell brokers that I'm a broker because there's this, oh, I don't want them stealing my clients. I'm like, I am prohibited from doing that. I don't want to play in that pool. You have it. So full disclosure, I am a managing broker, but just just on paper. But yeah, it was a story because I tell the story about how I became one and why I became one. It was just over necessity, and now I don't go into those type of properties anymore. but so but
I
any
know
questions?
that I know there's probably a lot of questions going on in our head about the squatter world. As Nick and Victoria know, I had a squatter incident. We'll just call it that, where I had to fight them to get them out. But that could be a whole probably session in itself. Um, but is there anything that we could do? Might be a long question, but answer. Anything that we can do to provide to our landlords as something that can be done for them in a squatter situation?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
amen. I need to know.
yes.
Besides beat them up, okay?
Besides, do not beat them up. Do not beat them up. So you have preventative and you have reactionary. So here's the thing: do not let your property stay untouched for more than a week. Don't do it. It's not worth it. There are certain devices. I have a situation. I have Simply Safe, where it's a monitoring system. It's very portable. $29 a month. Just throw it in there as long as you have power, and it notifies you. All you need is two motion sensors and the keypad, and that's it. Here's the thing with squatters: be persistent. Don't let it happen. It's going to happen. I have a property who the tenant moved out. They needed some more time to get their stuff. This was a Friday. I went there. Everything was fine. She went back on Saturday. On Monday, when I came with the security system, somebody was in there. Somebody was in there on Monday. They literally moved in within 12 hours. So one, check on your property. Two, have your paperwork ready. Do not throw your hands in the air and say, there's nothing I can do. Squatters have rights. I mean, I would love to be your attorney and get a squatter out, but in that particular situation, don't spend the time wasting money. Get your facts in order. What I did in that particular situation was I called the police, had them come over. You have blue shirts and you have white. You have officers and you have sergeants. If you're not getting the results you want, ask for a sergeant and wait. Ask for a white shirt if it's Chicago, and you educate them, saying they have not established their any squatter's rights. They are not squatters. They are trespassers. Typically, to squat, and there's no real fine rule, but the courts look at it if as you establish occupancy or residency, if it's been 3 weeks to a month. That's a rule of thumb. It's hard to litigate that, but most officers will look at 3 weeks to a month. Anything less than that, absolutely not. And the more you can prove to say, I was here on Friday, it's Sunday, this is what happened. They moved out. I can tell you, the locks were destroyed. There was forcible entry. You let the police know that this is not a squatter situation, it's a trespass situation. Let them do their investigation. Let them find out what allows them to be there. They're going to show you some lease that might be fraudulent. Just because they have a lease does not mean that they can stay in your property. Sometimes, in rare occasions, they may have a lease, and that tenant, that squatter, that trespasser is also a victim too. Sometimes, but just because they're a victim too doesn't mean you have to bear the burden. So you say, sorry, you're a victim too. Whoever was there, because at some point you have people that prey on desperation. If you know you can't qualify for a place, and somebody says, hey, come here at 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to go into this back door. I'm going to give you a key that works to only this. They know what's going on. They know it's not the legitimate situation. But at some point, their desperation got preyed on. Doesn't mean you have to fall victim to it also. So be persistent, because typically the police will give you the line saying, well, it's a civil matter right now. There's nothing we can do. Go to court. Be persistent. Know your times. Know the last time you were there. Let them know this place was vacant. I was here last on this day. It has not been 2 weeks yet. This person is a trespasser, not a squatter, and let them investigate. And I pulled up the recorder of deeds. I showed the company, the LLC that owns the property. I showed the Secretary of State that shows I'm an authorized agent of the company. I had my paperwork. Luckily, they were able to show it to me, but get your paperwork together. Don't be frustrated.
It was good that you said that about the white shirt. That's what he told me. Use the word trespassing. Never say they're squatting in the property. He said, say trespassing and call. And he said 9, 12, and 5 and make them, even if, and he said it was at 71st. He told me if he's on, I don't remember his name, but he dislikes the situation. So he'll send somebody. And he said they may show them a
bogus lease.
A lease. But if you continue to do that, they're going to get annoyed if you're there 9, 12, and 5, and eventually they may just go. But
you're talking about 9, 12, and 5 in the time wise?
Yeah, he said those are the good times to go, 9, 12, and 5 to make a call saying that they're trespassing.
Okay, you're talking about that police station. That's when they have the most the availability.
Well, he was just saying that it's just a good mind to think about calling to say trespassing. If they can't get out at a certain time because they're busy, they'll call again at 5, call again at 9 the next day, and the persistent will get them out there enough that they're going to realize that they need to remove them and bring all your items. Is what he told them.
I wouldn't advise doing that. That's wasting your time. You call them one time, and you just be patient, and you're not leaving until they remove the people out of there. It took me 2 hours. I can't. They came, they investigated, they came back, they talked. They asked me some questions. They asked them questions, and I just said, "Hey, the law says that this is a trespasser. They don't have the right to be there." And you keep being persistent, and you get them out. Now, be safe, because some people are crazy. So be safe. Don't be in their face. So as soon as the guy, I tried to unlock the door, the locks were changed. He said, "I'm sorry, this is my house now." Okay. Went across the street, sat in my car, called the police, waited. But don't turn a trespass into a squatting situation. But if you have a bona fide squatting situation, it is rough. It is rough. It takes time. The 1-day notice, and there's certain things you have to do. And then the unfortunate part about a squatting situation is if you're successful in court, you can't ask for any monetary damages because you don't have a lease with them. So you're just waiting for court. And it's I'm not going to tell you how far long it takes to start right now, but it's a lengthy process because squatters have rights, trespassers don't. So label them appropriately.
That makes all the difference. Thank you for that. We will remember. The most we've been hearing about personally, I mean, we know it's a thing, but personally, this is like the closest it's been to our business in these recent months.
Oh, it's horrible. And you're talking about rental situations. As brokers, be careful with those lock boxes too, because if they're not breaking into lock boxes, most of the time you have brokers that leave the code on there and they're just getting the keys, so they're not even forcing the entry. It's horrible. Try those push button. If you're going to use the lock boxes, that's not a central lock. Use the push button ones where the code is not on there. But half of the time they're just watching. They know when somebody closed it properly and didn't, and they get in there. And with these listings, if you have a listing that's not popular and you don't have a lot of brokers going to a regular basis, tell your owners to check on them. If you don't do it, tell your owners to check on them on a regular basis, or it's easier to put an alarm system. Then you don't have to worry about it. Then when you get notification, then you can go check on it. And when they hear the noise, they know it's not going to work. And I hate to say this too, but sometimes when you know the neighborhood is watching and you're there, set the alarm off by accident. Let them hear there's an alarm here so they know, now don't go there. Just let it make noise. Let it make some noise. That's that big that big noise in the sky where they say, no, don't go that one. Don't do that one. Because it's such a small cost. I'm not saying you have to have monitored cameras and everything, but you can get away with a noisemaker and a few motions at the doors, and it goes to your phone. It saves you, even if you don't come back, even if you're not able to go right away. If you're able to come back the next day, You're keeping a squatter from you're keeping a trespasser from establishing occupancy and doing damage. But
this was so great for me. I know I'm sure everyone else were getting some positive reviews. So I think everybody else got some great information. If there's anybody, I don't want to stop you from asking the last question, but we did our hour for sure. So if anybody has any last words or questions, comments, again, what Victoria said, we will have the next one. He'll be doing again with us on Thursday. We are trying to just put landlords in there so that we could ask our questions in this one and then be a support to our landlords in the next one.
I did get a question from someone. They said they got a call, so they're not sure if they missed something. During the part where you discussed the requirements for heat during certain months, they asked, are there any requirements for cooling? Any AC requirements?
only with the senior homes, only if you're a vendor of a senior home. So currently there are no requirements for cooling. If you manage a senior home or a community with 55 plus, then you do, if you provide central air and individually controlled, you're great. If you do not, then you are required now to have a cooling center. I don't know how much of your clients run senior homes like that, but that's the requirement now. When you have a requirement like that, just know something is coming. So it's I wouldn't be surprised if that's in the works to require central air. But right now, no, there is no requirement for cooling in units right now.
So is that maybe I just missed something by answering some question. But if the air breaks, but you supply them with the window air, does that satisfy? Because let's say I had a rental and I don't want to fix the condenser, but then I provide them with another type of air. Is that legal?
Yes, to
Okay.
answer your question. But here's the thing. There's no requirement to provide air,
Oh,
with the
okay.
exception of a senior home in Illinois where the community, you have to provide air or a cooling center. Now, is it legal? It's not illegal, but your problem is a little bit different. Your unit, they're renting something that has central air. That may be avoiding the habitability. They're not getting what they're paying for, and that might be a different situation. So you have a duty to repair that, but it wouldn't be a legal issue. It would be if they do sue, they would say that because you don't provide central air, the place is not worth the rent that you're paying. So I'm going to reduce based on what you're shorting me of, and that's a whole different scenario. Just fix it. Just fix it. But yeah.
Okay, and I don't know that this is a question necessarily for our attorney. I think it's something maybe us as agents in the industry need to discuss because, like he said, everything is very new. But it's basically asking, if we're representing a tenant, should we have them pay for a credit and background check up front that we run so then we have access to it and we can then submit it as we submit offers so then we're not waiting to see if we get it back from somebody else.
You could. That 30-day clock is ticking though. So you're talking about running a tenant's credit before actually finding properties that they want to consider?
I think they're saying that they would do it when they're applying for like the first one.
Okay.
They would run through a system that they have access to, and have the tenant pay for it, and then they would then have it. So then if they don't get that one, they can already have it to send to through other applications.
See, you just opened up a potential loophole. So now the question lawyers think of is that a way around paying any application fee? Say, you know what, somebody run it and have this. So I don't know yet. And I have to look at the procedural history of how that rule came in place. But I'm assuming the broker that's running it is the first applicant. So I don't think that'd be a problem. The whole nature, the whole point, the aim of that law is to stop landlords from having a side hustle of making applications. So there's been, and here's been the lawsuit lately. There's been landlords that have been applying and they already found a tenant, but they keep allowing new applicants and collecting application fees. 150 here, 60 here, and so they don't want to unduly enrich a landlord by keeping something on the market just to collect those fees. With all new laws, it takes some time for it to simmer a little bit, for the dust to settle, and figure out what other skeletons may come out from this. But I don't see a problem with that scenario. Are your brokers involved a lot in these type of transactions, or is it more property management, or are they just tenant finders? How does that normally?
Well, here tonight, we had people answer a question. Most everybody is a broker.
Okay.
But some people may call themselves property manager. I'm a broker that does rentals, but I wouldn't call myself a property manager.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
they also are asking good question. Does it apply to commercial leases, this same scenario?
No, only residential. Only
Only
residential. All these
residential.
predictions. So there's a standing thing. If you're a business owner, buyer beware. You figure out, you have to due diligence, do your own thing. These are all to protect residential people. To food, clothing, and shelter. These are the things that are mandatory. So, but no, not for commercial. Nope, not at all.
Nick, if they want to go over to the next thing that exit, because we are busy office, we do all types of stuff. If they want to go to the next one in 8 minutes, what do they have to have a link, or how does it go?
They can actually still, they've got, this is for exit strategy realty agents and our clients. They just need to text exit strategy events, all one word, to the number 85377. And
Okay.
that's Lifetime Client Concierge Portal, exit strategy events number 85377. I will, you guys all there at 7 o'clock. I'm going to go use the restroom before.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
So again, this has been great. I know I see somebody seeming like they're going to ask the question. I just can't see it yet. It's bubbling on my side. So if you guys are thinking you want to ask something, let us know. If not, we'll let him go to his evening.
Right. And if not, you have his information on the screen. You can always, I'm sure, contact him if you do have any, more complicated issues that you need to discuss with him. And then I did put the link for next week if you want to invite your landlords. We just want to break it down in terms that they understand. So we'll be here next week.
And I just want to make sure, I'm not sure if she's still on here or not, but Carmen is the one who connected us, who works with him in his office on these deals that I've worked with showing my age, 14 or 15 years in the business. So I'm not sure if she's here, but I did send her a text to thank her because this was a great connection for us.
I'm here.
Oh, good. So if
Hi,
anybody
guys.
needs any duo team out there, our agent family, they are great and get us out of a lot of predicaments. So over the years. So we thank you, Carmen, for the connection.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And
Thank you guys for putting, I'm sorry, Chuck. I was
Oh,
just
you're
going to
good.
say thank you, ladies, for putting this on for everybody too. Great idea, great idea. We all need it, including myself. I mean, Chuck's is the expert, but I need it too. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely learned things thinking I know it all, but this was hard for me to wrap my mind around some of this stuff, but now it's easy for us to talk to our clients.
Right. I was looking into it, and that's how we started with this. And I'm like, oh, wait, he mentioned a bunch of stuff that I didn't see originally. So definitely very grateful for the information.
Absolutely. Not a problem. I'm glad to give it. I am a teacher also, so.
Jack of all trades. That's what we do in this business.
I am entertaining myself by looking at these comments talking about one smack won't hurt. Please don't fight the squatters. No, no. Don't show
I
those
had to use
hands.
my boxing skills from working out. Okay.
You're not out with us in these streets when we're trying to get deals done. People stop us. By
We
the
have to
time it
fight
gets
for our
to
lives out here in these streets.
The biggest deal is to make sure you get home. That's the biggest
blood,
deal.
sweat, and
No, that's
tears
true.
before it gets to you. Before we get that contract to you, it's been blood, sweat, and tears. Okay?
Appreciate
Literally.
that.
Literally.
All right. Well, like I said,
Thank
if
you,
anybody
guys.
needs me, feel free. My contact is there, and I can be a wealth of resources, or I can be a good researcher. So whatever you need, by all means.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Be safe.
you. Have a good evening.